Hi everybody, welcome to Real Talk with Vince. Tonight's show or today's show or whenever you're watching this is going to be a rather boring, long explanation of how the Senate seats are calculated using a spreadsheet. There is a great video out there by Topher Fields that shows it using marbles. It's a great explanation on how Senate seats work and also how the lower house seat works. But this is for those who are a little bit more technically minded, this little video is about how it actually works in the counts on the sheets. Now, there is a couple of assumptions that are made here due to the fact, and I'll raise them as I'm going through the sheet. I did request from the AEC clarification on a couple of things, and some 6 days later, we still do not have a response. So if there is a mistake here, it's totally because the AEC just doesn't want to be honest about what is going on. Anyway, I will be going off screen and bringing on a spreadsheet so that you guys can see, and I'll try and explain as we go through. This particular spreadsheet concerns the South Australian election, but the same philosophy holds for every other state around. Territories are a little bit different, but we're not going to be too concerned about those today. So let's go and get into this, and hopefully you make it to the end of this video because it's probably going to really bore you on how it works. But I've said I would do it, so here it is. So in South Australia, we actually have quite a number of people running for Senate seats. As we can see, it starts from A and goes through to R. And it should also be noted that as of February in here, there was 1,296,936 voters. To make my life a little bit easier, I have rounded that off to 1,300,000. Now, how do they work out quotas for the seats? So there are 6 seats that are coming up in this election. And in the next 3 years, the other 6 seats will be vacated and they will come up for election. So there's 12 senators per state, and they have a 6-year term each, and they rotate every 6 years. So hence we get 6 elections, 6 senators that are vacated this time and 6 next time. So what they do is they take the total number of registered voters, and in this case we're using 1,300,000 by the number of vacant seats plus 1. This is the formula. So they say 7 seats in total. They then divide that number into the 1.3 million, and whatever that number comes out at, they then add 1, which gives a quota, or a winning quota in this case, of 185,715, and that means that they need to get 14.285% of the vote to be able to actually win a quota. Now, when it comes to quotas, as you will see below, there's an area where once they win a seat, there's going to be some votes left over, and they need to now work out what is called a transfer ratio for that. So in our situation, we can see down here, I've already put in the first counts of all of the votes going right through, and we have Liberals have won 2 seats, Labor has won 2 seats, but nobody else has won a seat. So that means there's still 2 seats up for grabs. With this though, when they do this, these voters that are left over, these seats that are left over, 28,000 here, they can't determine exactly which one of these votes, should these votes need to be transferred to somebody else, which we will make happen in a little while. These whole 400,000 votes need to have their preferences shifted. So when they do that, they need to shift the whole 400,000, not just the 28,570 that are left over, because they can't determine which one of these votes or their preferences goes where. So hence the reason they develop a quota, and the quota is a really good thing. How they actually get that quota is that that transfer ratio, I should say, not a quota. How they actually get that transfer ratio is they take the number of votes left over, divide it into the number of total votes, and that gives them a percentage that each vote is worth when they transfer that to another, to their second, third, fourth, or fifth preferences at whatever stage it comes that those votes need to be transferred. So just to clarify, this little equation works out that they take the 28,570 votes here, and then they divide it by 400,000 votes, and that gives you that ratio that we see here. So that's the actual formula for it, just up here. Now, the other important thing to remember, that when you're voting, you're going to have the option of voting above the line, or you're going to vote below the line for various people. Now, one of the questions that I asked the AEC was, what happens to these independents? These two guys here, they are not grouped. They're called ungrouped. So as an ungrouped thing, they do not get an option to have a little tick box above the line. They only have their tick box below the line, or their numbering box below the line. So effectively, that means that if you want to vote for these guys, you need to vote below the line. It also means that if you want your vote to count, you need to vote all of the other 12 people below the line. Otherwise, they may just throw it in the bin. If you go and say, put a number 1 below the line here and a number 2 below the line there, and then go above the line and do 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, there's a possibility that the AEC will count that as an invalid vote and it will land over here. So if you're looking to vote for ungrouped or independent people who are not above the line, you will need to make sure that you vote all the numbers below the line. If you wish to vote just above the line, understand that these independents won't even get a vote at all. Now, how does this all work? What they do is that they, after this first count, we have voters left over in that. And we also have ratios that have been developed. You'll notice that the ratio for anybody who doesn't meet quota is a 1. So that means 1 vote equals 1 vote. The only time that ratio comes into play, as I explained before, is when they have to split this 400,000 votes amongst other ones, if they ever get to do that. So by actually letting your vote expire somewhere down the line, you don't add to these guys' numbers, which is very handy. So for all of these ones that have a 1 vote, let's have a look. Our first party is this independent one here. They've only got 100 votes. So they're the smallest group with 100 votes. So they're the first people to be eliminated. So what they do is they grab all of those sheets, that 100, and they then send them off to their second preference. And let's say for our situation, the second preference of those 100 is 90 to this party, or to this person, and let's say 10 went to that person. Now we can see nobody has got quota again. We still do not have that 185,000 plus on any of these boxes. So what they do now is, we still have 2 seats available, so they go and get the next smallest group in here. So that's, say, the 250, and they then take those sheets and they start splitting them around. So we'll take our 250 here, and let's say that we're going to put 50 on this one, 25 on this one. I'm doing this because I've got a few that say 10,000. I just want to make it a bit easier. 100 on that one. And so that was 250. We've got 50, 75, 175, and 75 on that one. So that's how those votes split up. Notice at this stage, no votes have expired. And the reason for that being is because you've got to have 6 above the line and or 12 below the line. Mind you, I found out that if you vote above the line and below the line, so let's say you put 6 or 7 numbers above the line and you put 12 or 13 or 14 below the line, they will actually, the AEC will actually count only the numbers below the line, not the ones above the line. Excuse me while I grab a drink. So now that the two independents have been eliminated, we still don't have anybody who has enough to make quota for the 5th seat or the 6th seat. So what they do is they then start going along and they look at which one has the next lowest number of votes. So in this case, if we go along the line, it looks like we will be receiving 4,000 votes. Seems to be the next lowest number. So the Citizen Party is then therefore taken out of situation. And my phone's going off, so I apologise for that. So 4,000 votes, they get taken away from that particular party, and they are spread out according to the preferences on each sheet. Now, some of those sheets may have their third preference as specified one of these guys, but they're already gone, so that's not going to help. But their fourth preference goes somewhere else, and so it will use the next available preference that is not already expired. The group has not already gone. So in this situation, we will take those 4,000 votes, and let's say that we put 2,000 to Family First, and let's say 2,000 to the Greens, to One Nation. I'm making life easier here, just so that you get an idea. So now 152, there's 165 there. Still nobody has got quota. So they will then go along, once again, look at which one has the most number, or the least number of votes, I should say, and that group will be the next one that has its votes shifted around. To make my life easy, and to make your life easy, I'm just going to group one lot of voters to one party. I could split them all over the place, but it gets really complicated, so I'm going to try not to do that. So we're going to take our 5,000 voters, right, and what we're going to do is we will give that 5,000 votes over here on our fourth count. So when we go through here, now we look at this and we see that still nobody has got quota. All right, so what is our next lowest group number? That happens to be, in this situation, 6,000 votes. So now we're down to the 4th or 5th. At this point on the 5th count, it might be that some people's votes have expired because they're at 6 or 7 or 8 on their preference, but the first 5 parties or 4 parties have been eliminated. So their votes can then therefore expire because their preferences have all been used past the 6. So we'll take that into account when we do this one. So with that, we have, say, 6,000 are taken from here and then spread out amongst their preferences. Let's say for our situation, right, that 5,500 went to this party. but 500 of those votes had actually expired because they'd gone past their 6 and all their parties had been knocked out. So 500 goes in there, which this effectively means that those 500 votes can't go to the Libs, Labors or anything, because you've determined exactly when your vote expires. Anywhere after the top level 6 or the bottom level 12, you can make your vote expire. Okay, so now we're on our 5th count. We go look along the bottom here. Has anyone made that 185 yet? No, they haven't. Okay, so what they do is they look at along the bottom here and they find the one that has the least number of votes, and in this situation it looks like it might be this one, 9,000 votes. So with that, we're going to take our 9,000 votes from there and we're going to shift it across to, say, this party over here. Actually, we'll shift 8,000 votes over here. And we will go across to, excuse that, that's not supposed to be there. 10. That was from a previous trial, so I'll just get rid of those. And the other 1,000 votes will go into the expired column. Now, please understand, right at the start, there was 37,000 votes here that were already classed as invalid or void. Now, that 37 could be making a significant difference in this crew here at the moment, but, you know, as to who's getting votes. Right, so once again, going across here, nobody's got any real votes that we can see, so we need to then eliminate the next group or the next party that doesn't have enough votes. So we have 10,025 there, 10,010 there, and that looks like the 10,010 is the party that is going to be eliminated. So we'll take that 10,010 votes from there, and to make our life easy, once again, we shall add it to another location. So we'll give our 10,000, we'll give our 10,000 votes here. And we're also going to throw 10 votes into the expired column. Right, so we're now on the 7th count, and at the moment we still do not have anybody who's getting close to the number. So we go back through and we look again. So we have 25,000, 18,000, 28, 38, 10,050, 20, 15, 15, 35, 165. Okay, so it looks like this is the group that goes next. So we'll take out that 10,050 votes. Right, and in our situation, what we might do is we will throw 9,000 there and 1,000 there and 50 votes in there. So that takes care of our whole 50. Remembering at this stage, because the fact that there are on these seats that have been eliminated so far, they are all running 1 vote equals 1 vote. So just remember that. So here we are again. We have put through here and we look and we see that nobody has made quota. So we have to find the next group that doesn't have enough votes. 25,000, 18, 28, 38, 20,000, 15,000, 15,6. So it looks like the 15,000 votes are the one that goes next. So we take that out. and we add those votes around to relative places. Now, let's say that this party here gets a substantial amount of those votes. So let's say they get 12,000 of those votes. Right, and let's say that 3,000 have expired. See how the expiry number is going up? So, what do we have after the 9th count? We go through and look at what numbers we have, and we can see we have a 25,000, an 18,000, 28, a 38, a 20, 27, 35, 174, 176. So it looks like the 18,000 group is the one that goes next. 18,125. So their votes get split up. And to make it easy, we're going to take 3,125 as expired voters. So we're going to put them down. Sorry, that's also from previous. I thought I'd cleaned that out. So we're going to put in here 3,125 into expired voters. Then we're going to take the other 15,000 votes and spread them amongst someone else. So we'll put, say, 5,000 there, and in here we will take 10,000 votes. Now when we look at and go through this situation, what do we see? Right, we see that this group's got 30, this one's 28, that's the Libs, that's the Labours, there's 30,000 there, 27,000 there, 35,000 there, all the way through. So in our situation here, it looks like the 27,600 are the people that do not have enough votes. So we shall remove them from the group, and in this situation we might put 4,600 in the expired vote level, and that leaves us with 23,000 votes. So let's put some of that somewhere else. So we'll go and put, say, 3,000 votes there. 18,000 votes there. And over here we had 3,000, 18, 20, what did I say we had left? 23,000. Trying to go back and have a look. How many did we take it? 27, 4,623. So, yep. So we have 3,000 votes left. So that 3,000 votes goes there. Oh, 177. Not quite enough to make the count. So beautiful. So at this stage again, out of what's left here, nobody has got quota. So we start looking at what's left. So we have a 30,000, a 28, a 38, a 33, a 53, 177 and 153 set of votes. Now, here's where the magic happens. This is the next party to be eliminated because they only have 28,570 votes. This just happens to be the Liberal Party that has 2 seats already. But because every other party has more votes left over in this situation than the Liberal Party, they are the next one to be eliminated. Now, it's important to remember, and I'm just going to mark that one in red, it's important to remember that this votes have a quota. So in actual fact, we're not just going to be shifting 28,570 votes. We are actually going to be shifting 400,000 votes. That one. So that whole 400,000 votes is now going to be counted and split amongst the various parties. But the way they do that is, as they split that up, each vote is only worth this amount here, which I'll just mark red. So from here, what we actually will do is they're now wiped out, so they can't progress anymore. And that should have gone all the way down there. That's my spreadsheet doing some stuff. All right. More stuff I missed. That 28,000 vote, that 400,000 votes now gets split apart. So let's say, for instance, that 200,000 of those votes are going to go to this party. What have I done here? Excuse me for a second while I just work out where I'm at. That's the trouble with this. It's all done by computers, which is lovely. I actually have got that wrong. So excuse me while I just step back a couple of sessions. So I should have actually marked that one in red and that one out. And it's back to normal. Right, so the 28,000, so as I was explaining, the 400,000 at that ratio. Okay, so that means that this lot is gone. And that also means all of that down there is gone. Right, and these votes, these 400 votes, are then moved into this aisle. So in here, let's say that we actually have, in this 13th rollover, 200,000 votes. Sorry guys, just extra stuff that shouldn't be showing up in the sheet. 200,000 votes are moved to, let's say, this party. All right, so I have to do a formula here because it's going to be equals 200,000 votes, one more, times by the ratio, which is up here, the transfer ratio. And you can see that those votes, as they shifted over, even though we moved 200,000 votes, the actual ratio of the vote is really only 14,285. Right? And to make life easy for me, I am going to copy that and I'm going to put that on this one. And it didn't do it as I wanted it to. So we'll have to do it the hard way. I see why. So 200,000 votes by the ratio. And you can see there that they're now at 167,000. Still hasn't made quota. Now we've got to go back through and look at what's left. So we have a 30,000, a 38,000, a 47,000, a 53,000, 177, 167. Okay? So in this situation, what's the next one to go? That would be this one, the 30,000, because that's the lowest votes that there are. Okay, now 30,000, remember the ratio for this one is still 1. It's not one of these, but it's still 1. So we come down here to our 30,000 votes. Make sure I'm in the right 13th count, so that's that one there. So we're going to take that 30,000 votes out and we're going to spread that amongst some others. So we'll do some interesting stuff here and we will put, say, 20,000 votes in that one. And we will come over to this one and put in 7,000 votes. No, we'll make it 6,000 votes. 6,000 votes. And we will do 2,000 votes. And we will put in here 2,000, we'll do 2,000, 26, 28, yep, 2,000 votes that expired. I see 51,000 votes now no longer counting in the election because of the expired votes. But interestingly enough to note, in here we have 179, right, which is still not enough. It's 185 that we're looking for. So we've got to go through this process again. Right. So now we're down to, oh, that's got 58,000 votes. So the party that is now being taken out is actually this party here, right? Because at the moment they only have 47,000 votes. Right, this is 59, that's 179, that's 167, and this is 58. So this is the party that gets taken out next. So we delete that. And what we do is, remember, these are a 1-to-1 vote because they haven't reached quota. So let's say for our situation in this case that our votes over here, out of that 47,000, let's say quite simply that the basically 45,000 of them have expired. All right. Now that means that we only have 2,310 left. And for our situation here, out of that 2,310, actually, sorry, I'm going to change that just to make this a little bit easier. Let's say that 35,000 have expired, right? Which means that we have basically 12,000 left. And in that situation, we'll say that of that 12,000, 9,000 went to this party, right? And 3,000 went to this party. Now we can see that we actually have a quota, 188. So we are above what we need, 185. So that means that the Greens here in this situation get 1 vote. They now have a Senate seat. So now that the Greens have actually won themselves a seat, right, the next set of count has to be done. So as we go through this on the 15th count, what is the smallest group we've got here? So we've got 58,000 there, 59,000 there, 2,805 here. So that's a quota vote though. So that means that whatever's left over will only have a small amount to give, and that would be the one that is now eliminated. So effectively, those will get split amongst whatever's left. And as whatever the quota might be, so if we have a look right up, actually it's not going to tell me up the top, but whatever that quota might be, it might be 0.001 or whatever of a vote, is not going to make a significant difference in our example here. So assuming that that goes through, we now look at the last numbers here for the seat. There's really no use in expiring anymore because we have a clear and present winner with 170,000 votes here. And no matter how we split these votes up, we're not going to get enough votes unless every single one of these, no, we're not going to get enough votes to actually basically do this. It will be this party here that has the highest number of votes left will be the final seat that is actually done. I know that part is complicated, but just remembering that every vote that comes in here, right, at the end, whoever has the highest vote will get that final seat if they have not made quota. Also to note as well, as I was watching and editing this, I did notice there's a couple of places where I misworked out my numbers. So please don't take the numbers as being exact, because I know I missed 50 right up the top somewhere and then another 165 somewhere else. This is only an example, but it gives you an idea of how things work.